Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Sisters of Legacy. Uh, just give us a minute. We're gonna intro, and we'll be right back. All right, ladies. Shanetta, I just want to say I hit the wrong button. That is not the proper intro because that is the one that does not have your face in it.
It's
But
okay.
once it started, you can't really stop it. But I'm sorry. So I messed up. That is my bad. But guys, of course, it's us. You have Shanetta McNair,
Hey.
Katrina Taylor,
Hey.
and Tangela Terrell.
Hello, everybody.
All right, guys. So we are gonna jump right into this conversation, which is sure to be interesting. So we as a group decided last week that we were gonna watch this movie and endeavor to have some conversation about it. Oh, this is messing with my ears. Okay, so we are going to discuss this movie from our point of view, of course. The things. Hey, Melissa, how you doing tonight? The things that that we saw, what we felt, what we thought. We're just gonna give it all to you guys as we do every week. So the title of the movie was Malcolm and Marie, and it is on Netflix. For those of you that have not watched it, it is there to be watched. And Trina is gonna start us off
What?
with this conversation. Hey, Trix, how
Um,
are you?
wow. Okay, well, basically, we watched the movie, and basically, it's like a marathon argument between Malcolm and Marie. Um, it starts with them arriving home from a movie premiere where Malcolm has um I guess it was his first movie that came out, and they had the premiere, and the opening issue, shall we say, was that in his speech he didn't thank Marie, and that's where it all starts. So, um, I don't know. I mean, I usually don't do this introduction, and I didn't really have any, forewarning that I was going to do the introduction. So here we are. But I will point out, just right at the beginning, that one of the things, I think the first issue is that when it was brought up, she's she I guess it was mentioned while they were still there that he didn't thank her. And in the theater, it comes out that she kept saying to him, it's fine, it's okay. And she didn't express her displeasure any further. But then she changed her mind and decided to bring it up. And I think that's something that we do. we'll have a problem with something, we'll say it's okay, but then we think further about it, and then we, bring it back up. And I think sometimes that can or cannot be a problem. I don't know. What do you ladies think?
I definitely think it can be a problem. What I saw throughout the movie was that someone who was not honest about how they were feeling, and not just with the movie, but it came out about other things in their relationship that that they weren't okay with, but they put up with. And I think sometimes for the sake of the relationship or having a relationship, we tend to accept behavior and excuses just to kind of keep the peace, or for fear of, well, I may come across a certain way, so I'm not going to say anything. But all the while, those feelings are still boiling underneath the surface. And sometimes it only takes one small thing to just kind of, ignite the entire situation.
Okay.
I think it's a little um unfair, I think, to both parties when we don't, as women or whoever in a relationship, is not really honest about what they think or what they feel. It's unfair on both sides. It's unfair on the person who's holding in their feelings, because you're kind of not being truthful to how you feel in the midst of something happening. And I think there's a way to do and say everything. If you're unhappy about something in the moment that it happens, it may not be the appropriate time to talk about it. So it may be something like, well, I'm good now, but we'll talk later,
Right.
to where you're kind of indicating, I'm not okay with what happened, but this isn't the place to have that conversation. And then it's unfair to the other person when we pretend that we're okay with something, and then later we decide to kind of, let it all fall out, at one moment, because then it's kind of like, well, where'd all that come from? I thought you were fine. I thought you were okay. And then now this.
Why don't you think men do that? Why I typically don't see men, if they're bothered by something, they'll usually let it be made known. Why do you think women have a tendency to try to hold things in more?
I think sometimes we don't want to feel like we're nagging, or we don't want to feel like, oh, we're always the one with the problem,
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing. But and then sometimes you have your initial reaction, but then you
Yeah.
think on it. You got to think
Yeah.
it through, and you come up with some other stuff. Hey, and remember that time, and that's why, and then you connecting it back to other stuff and another thing,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think
and
that's
then
what
it
she
goes
experienced.
there, and it
I think that's what
happens.
she experienced in the movie when she said, I changed my mind. Um,
Right.
and I think sometimes we do think on things, and it's just kind of like, you know what? I
That
am
wasn't
kind of
cool.
bothered by that. Like
Yeah.
that does, like, in the moment I was okay because I'm okay right now. I know how to act in public. I know how to keep my
Mhm.
composure. I know how to behave. Um, but now that I'm thinking about it more and more, and I'm putting this together with this, and I'm putting all these things together, um, me and my husband laugh a lot about how he says, there was this book I had years ago called Men Are Like Waffles and no, men are like waffles and women are like spaghetti. And the whole idea of the book was that men have like little squares and everything has its own square.
Yeah.
They can
Okay.
put things in different compartments. And a woman will take it and just mix it all together. And like one thing connects to the other thing, and it connects to the other thing, and it's just all mixed in together. And I think that as we began to think about it, it's just kind of like, you know, that is kind of similar to what happened last week in this situation. It's similar to what happened 2 weeks ago in that situation. And now, here it all is at one moment. Take it all.
It's a gift. It's a gift. There's nothing like the female mind. We will reach back 10 years ago and make something relevant today.
That's right.
Okay, so Ephraim said, whenever your wife or woman says it's fine, trust me, it's not. He said, men live in the moment and find it easier to see things only right in front of them. Okay. I will say I don't really think she changed her mind. I think when he initially did it, I think it didn't really bother her because I think at that point, honestly, she didn't really expect a lot from him.
Mm.
Because even at one point, she says to him, because I love you, you'll treat me like crap because you know I'm not going to leave. So I think when he didn't thank her, I don't really believe that was, like an angering factor for her. I think the problem came in when everybody else threw it in her face that he didn't thank her. Because she said, oh, well, it didn't bother me until your mother and the leading girl in the film and whoever else came up to me and, told me not to feel bad about you not thanking me. So I think she was more about how other people perceived him not thanking her more than her having any expectation of it.
And that could be a factor too. I've had conversations with people. You have these hypothetical conversations, and I asked this person, "What would you do if your husband cheated on you?" And this person said, "Well, it depends on who found out. It depends on who knows. Did he do it blatantly? Was he carrying somebody?" So, I mean, maybe that's an element too of the embarrassment. It's one thing for me to endure this hurt,
Mhm.
between me and you, but now to add insult to injury
Mhm.
by broadcasting, how you really feel about me in public, it really, I guess, is a slap in the face as well.
Ephraim said, when there are many psychological what? When there are more psycho okay. Maybe
You have to read into that. I think maybe he's saying women are more psychological and can't see it separately. I'm not
um
sure.
yeah. Okay, she said yes, she said others made her mad about the thank you, but ooh, it was deeper than that thank you.
Definitely deeper than a thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had a lot of feelings about this film. I think a lot of some of her issues, a big part of them seem to almost have nothing to do with him. Like she, seemed like she had gotten clean and she was no longer on drugs, but I don't think she had fully dealt with all of that stuff. It seemed like she used him as a form of dealing with everything, and then he took all of that and made it into a movie. Like she dumped all of her feelings about the things that she went through into him or whatever, and then he turned around and kind of used it to make money, but I don't think she really dealt with everything because then she said something like, oh, now you've told my story, so I can't even tell it. Like it was mine, and now I can't tell it because you already told it. So I think she was dealing with a lot more than just his inability to love her properly. I mean, it seemed like, she had her own string of issues and, deficiencies, and he just added to it for sure. He really added to it because I don't see any logical reason why she was there. Like, like just based on the treatment of that particular night and even how there was nothing new about it. Because, like, at the beginning, she said, we don't have time for this tonight because I already know how you fight, basically. She already said, like, basically, I know that you're going to have no regard for how I feel or what I think. So let's do this basically tomorrow. Let's not do it tonight.
Mhm.
Like, so I don't get why she was there. Like, why, what was the draw for her to stay other than her just being, having her own long string of issues?
Well, she definitely was. She had her issue. She definitely was broken, and he capitalized off that. But she was clinging to that, so it was like a cold parasitic type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Relationship. They were both in their brokenness. Like I don't know.
It
It
was
was
like they're feeding off
feeding
of
off
the
each other. Yeah.
toxicity of each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. You can tell by the way they argued. It was just, you know how you say you fight fair and you don't bring up stuff from the past, you don't throw people. That was all out the window. It wasn't no
Right.
fighting fair. It was just like rah rah rah, and I was just like that. Now that was the thing that took me aback the most. Like Sam, you were saying, there was no love in that. Like where, like you couldn't feel like any type of compassion for each other. Like you don't just take off the gloves. You don't just say whatever. You don't take the knife and turn it. Even in your pain and when you're arguing with somebody, like you don't just come like he said, I'll break you like a twig. Like, who says that in the middle of arguing with somebody you love? Like, who says, like, I'm about to come and demolish you and break you down? This is what I'm about to do, and then proceed to do it.
They they didn't even, it wasn't even like a heat of the moment type
Right.
of fight. They would have think time, and then they would come back
Right.
with
Right.
a massive monologue of just
Nastiness.
hate. Yes.
Right.
And it was the most hateful and the most harsh argument to just kind of sit back and watch. And it was just kind of like, and even I've seen like comments and people talking about the movie, and someone is like, "Oh, I'm about to watch Malcolm and Marie," and another person is like, "Oh, don't watch that. Just come over my house. You can watch my relationship." And I'm like, people live like this, so it just baffles me that there are really people out there that fight this way in a
Mhm.
relationship and call it love. And
Right.
in
Right.
the end, where they can go and just hold hands and watch the sun come up, and everything is all back to roses and rose petals, and life is lovely and happy again, and we just do it all over again tomorrow or when the next issue
When
pops
the
up.
next issue comes up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just unhealthy, and it's like I don't even think in the midst of all of that turmoil they even realize that something like this is not healthy. It's not funny. It's not cute. It's not okay to hurt people like that you love, and then come back and call it all love.
Ephraim said they call it love because it's normal and it's been their example growing up.
Right. It's
So
their
that
normal.
that begs the question: can you have a healthy relationship if you grew up in a toxic environment?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think you can.
You can. You absolutely can.
How does a
Um,
person transition from that? How do you unlearn toxic behavior if that's all you've been exposed to? How you
well,
have to relearn the
Right.
proper way to love.
I mean, I'll say this: even as minute as the things you see on TV, regardless of how toxic your home is or what you see from your parents, you see other things. Even if, like I've been in class and have a teacher, like her husband come and pick her up with flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes you've been somewhere and you see people holding hands and hugging. So I'll say, there's always examples around. They may not be extensive, but you always see different things. And the transition of it is like really being dedicated to wanting something different.
Yeah.
Because, and it's a hard, what is that ringing? It's a hard thing. Why is that ringing? It's a hard thing to decide, to really let you want something different. But I think it definitely is possible. I'm getting a lot of comments. I missed something. Hold on. Where? Let me read these comments. Okay, she said for some reason they were clinging to each other. He had a string of women, right, with issues
Right.
that he loved.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. He seemed like he looked for, I don't know, almost weak, broken
Broken.
women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, Ephraim said they call it love. Oh, okay, because it's normal, the example growing up. She said it's not funny or cute. Of course you can. I guess she's saying it. Of course you can do something different.
Yeah.
Good question. How do you unlearn? I don't think you unlearn. I think you just push it. You push it to the side, and
Make a
it's kind of
decision.
right. It's kind of like you don't unlearn it, but you teach yourself something different, and it's not without like trial and error. Because I think a lot of times it's easy to fall into what you've always known, like what you've seen. It's almost easy to kind of fall into that place, but it's kind of like one of those daily things where you have to remind yourself, like, this really isn't what I want. He said learn to avoid the triggers, right? But you have to kind of understand what the triggers are too. Yes, you work at doing the opposite of what you saw that was unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Said, when an argument is coming, learn how to shut it down properly. Right, because when she said that in the beginning, I feel like she should have stuck with it. Like,
Mhm.
we're not doing this tonight. You know, the movie happened, we're home, we're going to relax, and we're going to move on.
So let me ask the question there. So when you say when we say learn how to shut it down properly, um, so for her to say, okay, we're not doing this tonight, and kind of cut it and leave it there. Had she done that, then of course we would have no 2 hour long argument that we all sat and watched. But but had she cut it there, do you think that there are certain people and certain personality types that can't let it go when someone says leave it alone, and they're kind of like
Oh,
that, they poke at it and they're like, well,
Absolutely.
what's wrong, well, what's the problem, but you need to tell me now, but I want to talk about it now, but can we fix it, but like, what's going on, you're not telling the truth, to the point where I can't even shut it down if I want to, like I just gotta, at
But
that moment.
and I hardly ever quote scripture. So, but you know how like the Bible says, a soft answer turns away wrath. So I
Hmm.
feel like, sometimes you really have to just kind of bite your tongue, even if metaphorically you got blood in your mouth because you're biting so hard that
Hmm.
I'm not gonna allow you to destroy my peace because there was no peace in that house. I don't even see how anybody who watched it had peace in your head for that 2 hours.
No.
Like that's how extreme it was. But I think you have to be committed to something different. And
Hmm.
then, committed enough to kind of realize, all right, it's enough. Like the whole ordeal, like it's enough. It's
well,
one
you both
thing.
have to be committed to that too.
No, I mean
It's
committed enough on your side where I say it's enough, like all of this. Like I'm done. I'm not just gonna not argue tonight. Like if this is all this is, I'm gonna be done with it. Cause
right.
I feel like at any point in that marathon of arguing all through the night, she could have said, I can't do this anymore, and got an Uber, a Lyft, a taxi, whatever,
I
you
literally
know.
thought she did at least twice, and I was kind of shocked that she
Right.
didn't.
Yeah, like, I think it's one of those things, people always say how bad do you want it when they're talking about success and, going after stuff. But I think sometimes it becomes one of those how bad do you really want your peace or your happiness? And sometimes you have to want it bad enough that you walk away.
Hmm.
She said her whole attitude was saying that she wasn't letting it go. He was trying to move on. They made up and fought over and over. Right,
And that's
both of them like just wouldn't let it go. I don't think either one of them. Um, it's almost like they almost really didn't see a problem with it. It was really normal for them.
I think she had to get some things out. She had to get out that whole, why didn't you fight for me? Why didn't you choose me? She had to get to the um why don't you see me and appreciate me? So even if they had gone through it before, she had to get there. You know what I mean? She had to get to that point that why don't you appreciate me? Because obviously it's a running theme in their relationship. But I feel like she had to get there. She had to express it again, even if apparently he's not doing anything about it, but she had to get and express that again. And I feel like that's where it was coming to uh, in the movie. Like that was the get to the bottom line in the movie that we had to see, that she had to we had to see her get to the point where you don't see me, you don't appreciate me, you don't fight for me. And that was the underlying why she couldn't let it go. There was all these other things, all these other symptoms, but the bottom line, her, and whatever his feelings were, but her bottom line was, you don't see me, you don't appreciate me, and just that one, you didn't thank me, brought all this out. But at the bottom line was, you don't see me, appreciate me. I've been here all this time.
Ashley said, "But you're supposed to fight for love, right? When do when do you know
No.
when to let go?" Um, well, if we're just talking in terms of this movie, the whole fight for love, I just didn't see any love there.
No.
Like you have to first of all, like especially in a situation like this, you have to know when you're fighting for love and when you're just fighting.
Right.
Because like in this movie they were just fighting. I don't even think, just listening to him talk about all the things he had done and then her say, I slept with all your friends. I mean, so
Oh no, that part she was acting. That was the part of when she was showing how she could have done
could
the
have been in a
role.
movie. Yeah.
She could have
oh
done the role. She wasn't saying she actually slept with the friends. She was saying, look, if
Trying to
I
prove a
had
point.
done the role, look how good I would have been.
right.
So
But
she
wasn't
didn't
there a
really sleep.
part in the beginning when he said that she had left him and was cheating on him somewhere?
Well, right, that was the one time, but later on when she was saying, when she did that thing with the knife,
Right.
that was
That
her
was about the
acting.
movie.
Right,
Yeah,
that
I
was
mean,
about
I
the
don't.
movie. But
In this movie, I just think they were fighting. I don't think there was really any love
but but
there.
when you are fighting for love, I think it's important to, you have to teach somebody. You know what I mean? If you're dedicated to it and you really are in love with someone, how to how to fight productively. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
right in the beginning. But like when you're having an argument with somebody you love, like it's spoilers, right? Um, it's important that, like, even if you say to him, listen, if you said, it's just the way you say it. So if you approach me and you say what you want to say, but you put a little sugar on it, then we can move forward with this. And now I'm not triggered about how you said it. So like just learning how to fight and how to talk about it and say what you're gonna say, but change your tone. Like those little things help you to fight correctly. And when you love somebody, you love each other, then he or she is gonna take that into consideration and say, you know what? Let me calm down. Let me lower my voice. Let me say it in a certain way so that you can understand what I'm saying, and we can not fight about how I'm saying it, and we can concentrate on the issues and keep it on the issues. Sometimes we start talking about, oh, this, that, and happened three, but that's that. First of all, we're not talking about your issue. We're talking about my issue. Let's concentrate on this issue for this fight. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when you really when you really love someone, you concentrate on the issue for this fight and how you're fighting. Because this whole gloves off thing, that just hit me so wrong. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tangela.
No, I think you do fight for love, but I also think that your partner can't be your opponent.
Right.
And when it turns into fighting each other, then we're no longer fighting, to fighting all of the opposition and whatever the enemy will want to attack. When the attack is coming from within, that's the issue. And I think we have to understand the difference between we are fighting together and we're fighting each other. And when we find that you're the person who is supposed to be your covering, your partner, the person who loves you, that's the person that you have to defend yourself against, then we have to step back and take a total look at the relationship.
Right.
Okay, let me read some of these comments. Sean said, I think the argument would happen, but would be shortened, but telling what was really on the mind when we could be honest with each other. The answer, we're beating around the bush, right, instead of being direct. Like, ain't nobody got time for that. Mama Moses, hey, welcome tonight. She said, establish rules for fighting. Acknowledge one another. Apparently, Sam Levinson wrote the movie.
He's the writer and director.
Okay. It sounds like the screenwriter did an excellent evoking emotion from the audience, I guess. Validate each other. She said, ask God to give me more love for my husband or my hubby. I need him. Keep the gloves on. There still must be decorum. Yeah, the actors, I mean, they acted. Ooh, he wrote Euphoria makes sense. He writes trauma, right, brilliant. I guess you might have to eat those words later. Right, like some of the, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't really feel like this relationship was a display of love. This was kind of like almost they had been in the dark together for so long, nobody knew where the exit was. Because when you tell somebody they're intolerable, like, they did the I hate you. He said something like, I want to, what did he say? Crush your stupid little face. Or, like, where do we go after that? I mean, like, he threw the fact that she tried to commit suicide in her face. Where do we go?
Right.
Like, I mean, there was no coming back from what they were doing to each other. At that point, I don't even feel like it was almost not even like a fight. It was like she laid down and he just pummeled her. And then when he got tired or his arms was tired, he'd get up and then he lay down. And she's like, oh, my turn. And she would just, they just took, they just took turns totally demolishing each other. So I don't know. I don't feel like they were fighting for love. They were just fighting. To snap you like a twig. Like, there's those things, there's no coming back from that. And it was a bad moment to fight. From exciting moments, wanting to be intimate, to full-blown argument makes the man more mad from no loving and arguing on top of it.
I'm telling you, throughout the entire movie, I was like, please just be quiet and have sex. Like, stop the fight. Just go ahead. Like, stop. Please stop. Just no words. Nobody say anything. And then when he got up and walked away, I was like, oh God, when he comes back.
Yeah.
Right. When he comes back.
I said. You could see it. You could see it on her face. I was like,
Yeah, listen, you know your relationship is in serious trouble when you like. I mean, she was practically naked the whole movie with her little bony behind. She was about naked, and y'all still couldn't even get over into the bed because you kept having something to say. What? Like it just it was too much. Like yeah, it was it was just too much. It was a lot of up up down.
Just
Like
mania. It was just mania.
yeah, I don't see how they weren't exhausted just from even acting out these scenes. Like it just seems like it would be emotionally exhaustive to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like they were fighting for love. I just feel like they were just fighting. Like their relationship had gotten to a point where they just fought. And it seemed like even a point seemed like for him he was like really angry about a lot because even when the part when it got to the review and they read the review and it wasn't like the review was bad, but he still went on a whole tangent. Like
Right.
he was fighting with the I don't remember whatever her name was, the Caucasian lady that wrote the review, and she wasn't even there.
Right.
So he's like he seemed like he just was in fight mode, like with anybody, with everybody. Everything was a fight except for how he talked about Taylor. Did y'all notice that?
Mm,
Did you
yeah.
notice that? Because when he talked about her, he seemed as though he had a different tone. Like, he had a different perspective. Oh, well, she's this. Oh, well, she's that. But when it came to Marie, it was like, "Rah." And then the lady that did the review, even though it was a decent review, he was still like, but Taylor got the benefit of the doubt. She seemed like she got the good side of Malcolm, which I'm sure probably is some of what fueled Marie's rage too. Because we
I think
noticed
she
that.
probably suspected that something was going on between them anyway.
Well, you see, he said that real quick. He said,
Yeah.
"No, I did not cheat on you," and she
Yeah.
was like, "I didn't
I
say."
didn't
He's like, "But
ask
I
you.
didn't cheat on you." He said it a couple of times. She's like, "I
Mhm.
didn't ask you. I didn't ask you." But yeah, as women, we can notice real quick. Don't come home and all you could talk about is Sarah. Oh, Sarah's so nice and Sarah's so sweet and Sarah's so this, cause it's gonna cause some issues for you and Sarah.
Mhm.
So I just definitely feel like he had a different tone when it came to the Taylor girl, who was the leading whatever, but I just don't feel like he had a whole lot of anything for Marie. I think they had just hurt each other too much between her cheating and the addiction and, him, I don't know, being present but not present.
Mhm.
I think they had just done too much to each other. And
I
the
think
movie doesn't really
run the
say whether or
course.
not they were married. Because were they married or were they just girlfriend and boyfriend?
They were just
It,
They were
dating.
just dating.
right. Like, at that point, they had done too much. It just seemed like they just should have, all right, break.
Mhm.
Everybody, it just call it. I don't know, but that's me personally. So, okay, what do you think these type of movies, right? Sam Levinson, I don't know if he's black. Is he black?
No.
Okay, so what do these type of movies, what do you think they say about people of color? Or do you think they say anything? How do you think they represent us, these types of movies?
Until you mentioned it, I didn't see this as like a black movie.
Hmm.
Um, I honestly think that this particular story could have been told in with any culture. Um, but and I think that's kind of the sad commentary is that this isn't only prevalent in our community. Um, like you said, when I think somebody said, you can just come over to my house and see it. I think we see it a lot, and it's played out on social media, on the news all the time. Um, I don't know until I know the actors, the lead actors are black, but it didn't strike me as a black story. There were elements I think they did. He mentioned um, the race thing about uh, in the reviews and things like that, but I think the same story could have been told with any diversity of cast.
I would agree. Um, I it makes I would have to say that seeing it from black actors does kind of in a moment make you just go, is it, is it something more to this, or is it just a movie? Is it just, you know, what like, could we have gotten the same result or the same intensity with actors of a different race? Would that have been possible? Would you have gotten the same type of, I guess, passion in the fight is what I'm going to call it, because it was, I don't really have another word for what we kind of set through witness other than that. But would you have gotten the same type of passion of the fight in um, the midst of it had they been of a different, would it have, kind of impacted you the same, or impact anyone the same way? It probably wouldn't have gotten as much play from us if,
Right.
like, we may not have even noticed as a movie. Like, I'm sure there are tons of films out there that we have never seen because we just don't notice, all different types of films. Sometimes we're quicker to notice a name, we're quicker to notice people that we recognize. The young lady, she's very recognizable among younger African Americans because she was a child actor. The guy that played Malcolm is Denzel Washington's son. Who's not going to watch that? So once you get that information, I think people are drawn
Just
to
out of
it.
curiosity, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
She said, while I would rather see positive black love stories, I don't think this movie set us 100 years back as a people during Black History Month. Okay.
Definitely would have loved to see a more positive love story.
Leonardo DiCaprio has a movie called Revolutionary Road with the same premise, but even worse.
Wow. Okay. That would
Okay.
not make me go and watch it
Yeah,
because
I'm about to say I would
like,
say I'd watch that, but I'd be lying because it was
nope.
hard. It was hard to get through one of these movies. I can't
Hmm.
imagine seeing it. I don't care who they put in there at this point. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was really hard to watch. Um, okay.
I think that it was weird that the movie came out around Valentine's Day or that it became such a big deal at that time. Just simply because it's not a love story. I think we can all like agree that it's
Right.
definitely not that. So it was just kind of like, oh, okay, this is what we want to do right before, the love holiday.
The acting was excellent. Yeah, I mean, I will say, when it first came on and it was coming on, and Alexis, who, had a hard time leaving my side since I came home Sunday, uh, she was like, "Oh, mommy, look, that's
Zendaya.
yeah," and I was like, "Who?" And she was like, "Zendaya," and I'm like, "But what is that, Alexis? Who is this?" Now I'm stopping the movie because I'm trying to figure out how she know who this is, and I have no idea. And she was telling me how she was on Disney. That she's in some
AC Undercover.
Casey. There it is.
Mhm.
Yes, that she's the Casey girl, and so yeah, she recognized her. As soon as she seen it before I put her out of the room because the movie was crazy, but
Right.
um, she definitely did recognize her, and I was like, wow. So was that like her first adult movie? Cause a big jump from going from
think
Disney to that.
I don't think it's a I
So
mean, she's still relatively young. She's like 24. So she's been kind of, I guess, transitioning into adult roles. Um,
mhm.
from what I understand, she and the guy who played Malcolm, they put up some of their own money as well to get the story told. So they it was more like a collaborative effort um, to work towards this, to get this story out.
All right,
It
let's
looks
see.
like she was in another film of his, the one Euphoria.
Oh,
Uh,
she was.
yeah, it looks like she was in that film as well. She, I guess, was the main character because she's coming up first under that film.
All right, Anthony said I'm a little late. What do you think was the message? Right, they were trying to convey. What that was my initial question. What was
Get out.
what was the message? What
She
was
said,
the
"Get out."
purpose?
Um,
May
Tangela, you said you watched some of the interviews or whatever about the movie. Did
Mhm.
they say, did they say anything in the interviews? Ephraim said what not to be.
mhm.
I didn't watch a lot of them, but they talked about how it was again not a love story, but a story about the ins and outs of love. I don't know if it was a certain or a specific message to convey, but more so a story to tell. Maybe this was just kind of a glimpse into just peeking into someone's relationship and the literal highs and lows of a relationship that all happened in a matter, of a couple of hours. Um, I don't think there was a specific message or a takeaway outside of just discussion, because I think we all know people who are in relationships like this, or we may have been in relationships like this. I think it was more so for our consideration, and sometimes when you see things depicted, you it has a stronger a stronger impact than when you're in it. Sometimes when you're in it, and if you happen to find yourself in a toxic relationship, it may be more difficult when people say, "Girl, you need to leave him alone," or "She crazy." But when you can see it depicted and you can pinpoint the hurt, you can pinpoint when someone is saying something that's damaging someone, then maybe it can cause some reflection.
Mhm.
Sean said you could destroy a person with words. I felt bad. I guess it's saying for both of them, male and female.
I think these types of relationships and, you know, probably more so types of arguments are more common than, we're talking about now. Like, you guys are in good relationships, so you might not see this, on a day to day. But I think these things are much more common, as far as maybe not as intense as this 1 hour where everything was thrown into 1 hour, but there's the small portions of it. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? The theme of not being seen or appreciated. I think that's something that's very common, especially when you're in a long term relationship. Sometimes it's just like, I've been here with you all this time, and you've now gone about your life, whatever, and we're going on our separate ways, but I'm still here. See me, appreciate me. I think that theme in and of itself is very common and very prevalent as far as, marriages and relationships. As time goes on, sometimes you know, take each other for granted. And I think that is, just one small part that someone can take from it and say, you know what, let me not take my significant other for granted. Or the way you fight with each other. That's another small portion, fighting correctly, you know? So I think
Just
those are even like the whole thing taken as a whole is a whole lot. But one
mhm.
or two things, the things that you can pull out, the small things that you can pull out, I think is relevant.
I've definitely seen people fight this way. Not necessarily, the exact same, direction or whatever, but fight in a very, I guess, unfair and toxic type of way. And I think that um, there are lots of relationships out there that are like this. And what the takeaway should be is like kind of like what Elder Terrell said a little while ago, what not to be. Like, let's not let your relationship look like this. Does this, like, when you see somebody else act it out, you see somebody else play it out, it can kind of make you say, you know, because I know for me,
Yeah.
just watching it and sitting back and just kind of seeing that, it was just kind of like when it was over, like I wanted to apologize for fights that hadn't even started in my house. I was just kind of like, I'm
Yeah.
just, listen, let me just kind of take a step back and make sure that I'm not out here just starting fires for no reason. And make sure I just kind of tell you, that little thing you just did, you left that sock over there. And I don't want this to come up a month from now. Can we like get the sock up today so that this doesn't come up in a fight, 2 months from now? And I'm like, and another thing. So I definitely would say I go back to the comment that Elder Terrell put, what not to be. Like, that should be the takeaway of this is not what love looks like. This is not what a healthy relationship looks like. This is not how you disagree with someone or go back and forth with someone that you say you care about. When you care about someone, you just don't do and say certain things. And the love that you have for them should overshadow you being that hurtful to them. Yes, frustrated. We all get frustrated in relationships. We all get angry in relationships in things, but I'm just not, it's just certain directions that I'm just not going to be hateful towards you because angry in this moment, because you can't take it back.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree because there was so much that there was no taking that stuff back. I mean, but I'm surprised by the end of the night. Like, I don't even want you to hold my hand, much less get in the bed and lay next. Like,
Right.
what would people say if they viewed one of your fights? Um, my fights are usually pretty quick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, you know, I don't really hold a lot in because with that blow up is just it's exhausting. It's too much, and then my kids are small, so you're trying to figure out how to let out all this frustration, still hide it from kids. Too much work. So like I try if something's bothering me, I just try to address it and move on. And most of the time, like once I say how I feel about something, I'm kind of good. I don't even really care what you say back. So, my fights it's not even so much of a fight. So I think people would probably think it's weird, though, definitely. Because for me, I just need to express myself. How you
Yeah.
handle, what I say is totally different. But, from the outside looking in, I guess it would all seem like a fight.
For me, I share sometimes with my sisters because they're married too, and they're a little bit younger. So like if my husband and I are having a disagreement or a fight or something, whatever, I might share what's going on with them. And it's always funny to me because they'll tell me, they'll be like, your fights are not even that serious. Like, y'all mad. And they laugh. And I'm like, no, I'm really mad for real. Like, I'm real mad right now. They'll laugh and they'll be like, it's not even that serious. Like, you mad over crazy stuff. And so I kind of let other people in sometimes into that experience. And I think because of the way that we've grown together, if someone were to watch a fight, they may not necessarily know that it's a real fight
Right.
because we kind of know how to talk to each other and be done with it and move on. If I'm mad, I need to be quiet for a while. I need my 15 minutes. I need my hour to my own thoughts in my own head. My husband told me the other day that I don't apologize when I'm wrong. So I'm working on that. Because I was like, yes, I do. And he was like, no, you don't. And I was like, I could have sworn in my head. Maybe I'm working on that. But I don't think that they would see anything traumatizing if they watched a fight between my husband and I. It would just be like, okay, they disagreed about something. That's interesting. And, that's pretty much all you might get out.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I'm learning more not to do the whole, hold it in. Because that used to be me, like, no, nothing's wrong, and then it blows up. So I'm kind of the mindset, address it respectfully. You can say anything as long as you say it in a respectful way. And I never want to say or do anything that I would have to regret. And to, even in the heat of an argument, I would never want to hurt my husband to the point where, I could see the pain in his face. You know what I'm saying? So just some the way that they were kind of hurting each other, I just don't, I couldn't see myself inflicting that pain on the person that I say I'm in love with and that I care deeply about. So even in our arguments, I'll say what we got to say and try to keep it moving, or carve out a time to say, okay, well, we're going to have to talk about this at an appointed time, but it needs to be dealt with. But yeah, they will probably say our fights are, I want to say, boring. They've been interesting in the past, but I don't think they've been toxic.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you guys, everybody's been married over 10 years. So, the hope is the longer you've been married, you've learned the rules of engagement. You know what I'm saying? The hope is to get better as you grow. Because, an argument 10 years ago, you still shouldn't be, as hectic as an argument now. I mean, honestly, you still shouldn't even be arguing about the same things.
Right.
Like, there should be growth and progression. Now, still 20 years in, you're going to disagree about something. But it just shouldn't be, we've been arguing about this for 20 years. That's just not right. He said, get better as you grow. I like to say, I'm right. You should, progressively, things should get better. You should figure out, better ways to communicate. Like, or even see an argument coming, like on the horizon. You see something on Tuesday, you like, dang it, I missed that. We gonna argue about this for the week is out. Cause I know, like, I've had those moments where something happened, and I'm like, I'm gonna hear about this later. And and you kind of, you're prepared. So even when it comes up, it's like, you can cut that argument short. Cause it's like, what? I knew when this happened that it was gonna have this effect, and I'm sorry, my bad. However you apologize. And it should be that simple and be able to move on. Or at least that's my take.
Right. And you learn how to diffuse, because you learn that person. So you learn how to diffuse it. You know what works. Get down. You know what I'm saying? And get it. This is what we need to do. You know what I'm saying? You learn how to diffuse when you get through it and work through it and learn that person.
Right. And everything, like, I'm thinking, Shanetta, he said you don't apologize. I remember it was a time with Anthony, his apology, he'd like go buy me like my favorite snack. And that was like, that was his way, of saying that he was sorry. Or something.
My husband and I had a whole like extra argument on top of that about ago. He came home and we had a phone argument, and he came home with food, and he walked in and was like, "Peace offering," and I was like, "I don't want your peace offering."
Right.
But I ate it anyway.
Right. Yeah, listen, I don't want that. It's like, I don't want that. Then give me the bag. Like, yeah, but like that's what I'm saying. Some things come with time, because let's be honest, everything isn't a arguable offense. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, a lot of times I feel like arguments occur because people feel disregarded. It's not even so much what you
Yeah.
did.
The
It was
actual incident.
right. It's okay. So you did this. You knew you did it, and then you just gonna disregard everything after. So, but like I said, over time, I think relationships should evolve. Communication, like you said, diffusing, knowing how to diffuse an argument, knowing how to see it coming. And even if it's like, sometimes you just stand still and let a wave pass. Sometimes you have to give people space to vent. Every fight you don't have to participate in. Sometimes it's just a matter of, I realize you need to get this out and you need me to hear it. So I'm going to hear it and then we're going to move on. Not like I got a rebuttal for everything you say. But those things, come with time and with maturity and dedication to the relationship. So actually, I know you asked earlier about knowing when to fight. You have to be sure that there's some level of dedication on both sides. Because if you're the only one that's dedicated and he's absent, you have to really consider, is it love that you're fighting for?
Right.
Make sure that you're honest with yourself about what you're fighting for. There's nothing worse than being in a fight and somebody punching you, or you punching somebody and then don't even really know like how you got here. It's like, how did I get here? And the same can be said in an argument. In the middle of an argument, you done went so far down the block. Like the two of them, they had went so far. Like, I'm watching and I don't even know what y'all arguing about no more. Like, so you don't ever want to find yourself in that position where you're arguing for the sake of arguing. It's way too much work. So I will say, as a whole, this movie was very interesting. It was a great thing, for all of us to do and kind of be able to talk about and just see that for the most part we all came to the same basic conclusion that it was very toxic. I would say for me that was very refreshing, because I did not want to get on here and one of y'all be like, but they was in love, because now I'm thinking maybe I should send some help to your house, because it's a possibility that this might be normal for you. So it was a great exercise for us to do together and talk about it. Great job tonight. Y'all got ready for my next argument. And yes, Ephraim is great at standing his ground. You gotta love him. But I want to thank all you guys for coming. I thank you for your comments. Ladies, of course, thank you for your time. We will be back next Tuesday at 8:30. Feel free to log in and join us. We appreciate it all, and we will see you guys next week.